with the T-spine mobility drills, two of my favorite mobility drills are the anterior to posterior, the front to back, that we use with what we call a peanut, which is basically just two tennis balls taped together. Make sure they're new tennis balls, as they have a lot more support at that point. They're not quite so worn out, not quite so soft, so they actually help you mobilize better. Literally took some athletic tape, two tennis balls, put it together. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to start out on your back, and we're going to take the peanut and we're going to put it just below the shoulder blades. We're going to put it about 2 or 3 inches below the shoulder blades, which is going to be just a little bit above what we'd call the bottom of the T-spine or the upper back. And this is where we start to try to mobilize for most people. So remember, when we're mobilizing this, that front to back, we really want to work on getting ourselves into extension, which would be being able to lift that chest up and out of that very poor kind of bent over posture. So I'm going to take this, make sure it's lined up and it's flat or even perpendicular to your spine. And I'm going to lay down on my back, and I'm going to make sure I get it right where I want it. And then I'm simply going to put my hands behind my head, and I'm going to exhale out, letting my shoulders lower down, and then I'm going to do a nice little mini crunch coming back up. So exhale out, little mini crunch coming back up. I'm going to do this 5 times. After my 5th one, I'm then going to work myself up the tennis balls a little bit. I'm actually going to slide them up my spine to just above the bottom of my shoulder blades. So I'm going to stay on my back. I'm going to move the tennis balls up just a little bit. I'm going to do the exact same thing now. It's also really, really important to focus on not letting your rib cage lift too much. You actually want to try to focus on moving through the upper back. And by doing so, you got to make sure that you keep the abs kind of tight and that you're not simply lifting that low back, and that's what's going to cause you to let that rib cage lift. So you want to really, really focus on trying to exhale, move from the upper back as you go back. At this point, I'm going to go to the last spot, the 3rd spot, and I'm then going to repeat, and this should be just below the top of the shoulder blades. And I'm going to move myself, really trying to exhale once again, moving myself forward and back. At this point, I'm then going to sit myself up. I'm going to cross my legs, pull my chest up nice and tall. Now, since we just helped you get into that extension position, the ability to kind of let that chest lift, now we're going to work a rotational. And this is going to help with a little bit of that shoulder turn. It's actually going to help keep some of that motion. Remember, we want to be able to move from the upper back. So put my hands behind my head. I'm going to turn to the side as far as I can, and then I'm going to pull my rib cage toward my hip. So if I'm on my rotated to my left side, I'm going to pull left rib cage to left hip. I am then going to turn again, and I'm going to repeat 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to turn again. I'm going to do the exact same thing 5 times this way. I will then go the other way and repeat the exact same pattern. And at this point, you've kind of loosened up that upper back through my favorite, the peanut, the anterior posterior mobility drill, along with the seated rotational. With the seated rotational, if you're struggling to be able to get yourself into this position with the legs crossed, if your hips are too tight or your back is too tight, or both, you can actually do the same thing just by being seated on a bench. Butt on the bench, feet on the floor, so you're at like 90 degrees, almost like you're squatting. You'll be sitting on the bench and you will do the exact same thing. It's important to realize that you do not want to do this standing, as it allows too much motion through the lower back and kind of makes your form sloppy. So definitely want to do it seated, and if you can do it on the floor, do it on the floor, because that helps prevent that movement from coming from the low back.